Hello and welcome to Rewarding Property Decisions, episode 127. This afternoon we have shunted Jared sideways, and in the seat is myself, Jordan Telfer, and Brenton Potter, a colleague here. What we've decided to do in this episode is to do another, what we do in the Q&O, question and opinion piece, because we've been dealing with a number of first home buyers of late, and some very pertinent questions that have been raised of us, either face-to-face with prospective clients or even the parents of first home buyers that are looking to get into the market. And over the last 6 months, the first home buyers have no doubt been part of, or probably the strongest sector of the market. In an overall weak market, first home buyers have been quite active, which is great to see. So there are some very good questions that have been asked of us in different forums over the last few months, and we thought we'd probably collate not all of them, but some of the more common questions of us and some of the more interesting ones, I suppose, as well, and run through those in, as I mentioned, in a sort of question and answer, question and opinion sort of a format. So we get stuck in.
Beautiful intro, Jordan.
Yeah,
I might kick it off and start with the first question here. I've got Jacob from North Melbourne who says, we want to make an offer before auction, but we're worried we'll either offend the vendor with a low number or overpay because we've panicked. So how do we get pre-auction offers right?
Yeah, yep. And I remember Jacob.
Yeah.
I remember that question, and it's a good question. And they're two very, as in most things, I suppose there's always a balance, isn't there?
Yeah.
When he says offending, it's probably not so much offending, it's more putting forward an offer that's so low that it's just people don't think you're serious, really.
Yeah.
And you want to engage with somebody, don't you? And say, well, that's not necessarily as far as I want to go, but it's something at least to pique the interest and show that it's not an insulting offer, I suppose, that you're somebody there to deal with. So that's a good question.
Yeah. I think it's partly to do with, number one, knowing what you're buying and your research involved in the property. So, I mean, there's no use starting with an offer if you don't even know what the property's worth. So doing your research or educating yourself on the type of property that you're looking at in that market, whether that's attending auctions or looking at data websites, just being as informed as you can, that forms quite a part of the process.
Exactly. That's the baseline, isn't it? That's the foundation of any negotiation, is understanding what's the property worth technically, and then what's it worth to you as the extra layer on top of that. So you then know that, well, to his question, how do you know if you're not overpaying because you're panicked? Well, as you said, Brenton, you get a good understanding through comparable sales evidence as to what it's worth. Now, what level to go in at? Well, look, as a rough rule of thumb, I suppose, within a quote range, if it is quoted, don't necessarily feel shy about going in below the bottom end of the quote range. But if it's too far below, then you're then moving into that territory of, well, it sort of becomes a ridiculous, insulting offer that someone would just say, look, they're not fair income, don't deal with them. And so then it's moving through the process from there, I suppose. Bear in mind too, the likely level of interest, competitive interest, and there's a whole lot of other aspects as well. Is this a pre-auction offer? Is it an offer in a private sales situation, whatever it might be? And that
you're right. We could do a whole podcast just on this.
As to how to kick that off. Yeah.
Yeah. What are the terms of engagement? Is it a best and highest offer if you were to start that process, or would it revert to a boardroom auction as well? And there's different strategies around that, which, again, we could talk for an hour about on that, couldn't we?
And does it make sense to even provide to put in an offer to start with?
Yeah.
Or is it best to see through the process? So there's a lot to think about here, but just broadly speaking, to answer the question, if you want to make an offer before auction, if that makes sense, if you're taking good advice and it makes sense to do so, you offer something will get some interest, but kicks the process off rather than having a vendor jump at it and say, sign it up.
I think that's a fair call.
Yeah. We had another question from Madison, who's from Elwood, who asked us, the agent tells us there's a lot of interest in a property and asks for our best offer. How do we know if that's genuine? and what should we actually be asking about their offer process?
Yeah, that is another good question. Probably could be similar ties to the last question as well. But Madison, what I'd say is, one, I'd ask the agent, is the offer on contract? And probably then another question is, in terms of a lot of interest, and to put the best offer forward, if they're saying they've got an offer, is the property on the market? It would be a question I'd be asking. Does the agent say if there's a lot of interest? Sorry, I'm getting my head around the question again. The agent tells us there's a lot of interest in the property and asks for our best offer. Yeah,
I'd be first asking with that. There's not a lot of other information there. I didn't speak to this lady, but I'd be first asking, what's the situation? Is it a private sale or is it an auction? If it's set for auction, and the agent is enticing you to put forward an offer beforehand, I'd be asking why. And to me, that contradicts the assertion that there's a lot of interest. If there's a lot of interest, you're going to go to auction. If there's not, they're probably fishing for a pre-auction offer. Knowing that, you go to auction. And if Madison's the only one there, well, the negotiation, the strength of negotiation then turns in her favour. So that's probably the first thing I'd be asking. And I would be probably putting it back on them. The agent has come to you saying, provide me with an offer. Well, again, particularly if it's an auction process, it's, well, I'll see you at the auction. But if you're looking to sell before, what would your vendor take?
Where would we need to be?
I'm not initiating this process. I'm moving through the process that you designed. And if that's any different, then it's probably for the vendor to say, well, we're prepared to sell at or around this in pre-auction. Now, if it's a private sale, it's possibly a different story. But that's probably the first question I'd have. How do you know if it's genuine? Well, that's a good question. But if you're responding to an offer that's already been made, well, that's when the question be asked. Well, is that offer that's put forward, is it acceptable? If I don't counter, as I think you mentioned a moment ago, mate, if I don't counter, will the property be sold? Or are you just going, is it a fishing expedition? So it's just asking and just drawing out of the agent, well, what is the situation? And the more of these questions that are asked, well, it'll either confirm the position and something is genuine, or perhaps if they're caught in a bit of a contradiction.
And the more of those questions the agent can't ask or can't ask really off the top of their head, it tends to tell you that maybe the offer may not be there, or there may just be a verbal offer as well. So, to your point, Jordan, it's worth digging deeper on those questions with the agent. That will give you more confidence in a process. And again, it's putting it back on the agent. If they're saying something or if they're inviting you for an offer, then it's okay. Well, where's the starting point here, or what's going to get this on the market?
As you said, has it been documented or is it just talk? Rosie from
next question. Rosie from Yarraville. Many of the houses that we've looked at have a building inspection report provided by the agent. Should we trust this building inspection report or engage our own building inspector? That's another good question. It's pretty topical because that's going to come in soon as well.
That's proposed, isn't it? That vendors provide the pay for the building inspection that gets disseminated to any interested party. Person who ends up buying the property pays for it in the end, but it's there for everybody to see. And I don't mind that. At face value, I think that's probably a good approach. It saves multiple building inspections and people wasting time and money potentially. But it does pose the question, doesn't it, as to, well, whomever pays the piper calls the tune. That's to right. a degree. Personally, I'd always want to engage my own. But look, it doesn't hurt, I suppose, to look over it. But if there are certain things that you would want to see comment made around certain big ticket items in any good building inspection report, and if they have been omitted or if there's no reference to them, well, then you might want to start questioning, particularly if it contradicts, I think, anything that you might have seen going through the property. It's I think it's probably best answered by that, in that, well, you want to be sure of things, engage the process yourself and
do
get
it
your
yourself.
own person.
And make sure that you're comfortable and you're, again, educated, or you've spoken to the appropriate people, because you can't rely on, as you said, someone else's report to to show all the facts as well, or to find out everything about the property.
Yeah, and it mightn't have been. It might be something that is that's quite a genuine person. The builder's quite genuine. It's not necessarily the vendor's a report that's been sort of doctored just to omit certain negativities about the property and to paint it in its best light and in the best interests of the owner. It could just be somebody that's really not as thorough as what your builder or your preferred inspector might be. They might have genuinely missed something that perhaps they shouldn't have, cut some corners, but not necessarily for nefarious purposes of trying to doctor a report to suit the vendor.
No, that's right. Yeah.
So Daniel from Torquay, we've been told don't reveal your maximum budget to the agent, but the agent keeps asking what we can afford. How honest should we actually be with agents during the process?
Yeah, it could be a tricky one, Daniel. I'll start with potential off-market properties. I mean, if you're going out and you're looking for off-market opportunities and you're speaking to agents that you've either dealt with or sent it open for inspection, you need to give them some sort of a guide. Otherwise, one, they won't know which properties to put in front of you, and two, they may be putting the wrong properties in front of you if you haven't provided at least a guide in terms of price. So, I think in that aspect, whether it's, if you're a first home buyer and it might be, I've got a budget between $600,000 and $800,000, but it really depends on, the top end is if everything is renovated and ready to go, or the bottom end, I'm open to it doing a bit of work or whatever it might be. If you're getting through an open for inspection and an agent asks you what's your maximum budget, they should have a fair indication of buyers walking through on their property with their quoted range. So it's a pretty forward question to ask. If I'm ever asked that, I normally say, look, I've got the interest within the range. It's not giving away anything, and it's a respectful comment. And most agents should respect that and leave it at that.
Yeah, I think so. The tricky part is, as you said, the off markets in that you've got to give to get.
Yep.
If an agent is going to be putting off market properties to you, they want to make sure that they're not wasting their time and putting something to you that's just totally out of your ballpark or not of interest because of its condition or location or what have you. To that end, fairly wide range in terms of, and quite genuinely, within whatever your capacity is, probably pull it back a little bit from the top end of your capacity. The agent's probably not expecting you to give everything, and then qualify it by, as you said, something that is absolutely rigid, ready to go. Don't need to spend $1 on it. Well, obviously we can push ourselves closer to the top end of our range. That which we might need to do some work, then we're not going to be pushing ourselves, and that's quite a subjective element too. In that, one person's happy to live in a property that another might want to set aside $150,000 to do a bathroom, kitchen renovation, paint, carpet, light fittings,
Exactly
all the rest of it. So that's where you give enough for good properties to be presented to you, and
the agent should be respectful after that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Good. So that was Daniel.
Yes.
Now, a couple more.
So Emily from Hawthorn. We keep hearing it's a buyer's market right now, but everything that we like still seems to sell for more than we expected. Is the buyer's market narrative actually true at the pointy end, or only for certain property types?
Yeah, that's actually a good question, because there are properties that are still in this what is regarded as a market in downturn. There are still properties that are performing particularly well in certain sectors of the market, and everything you do read is, well, it's a buyer's market, but you might find that at the top end of the market, but at the bottom end, which is the first home buyer end of the market, which we mentioned in one of our earlier questions, that's actually, by and large, for good properties presented well, still have all the right fundamentals. They're performing pretty well. I mean, at least they're getting competition and not shooting the lights out well beyond top end of quote ranges or anything like that, but it's still healthy enough. So
yeah, if they're in a good location, they're well presented. They don't need to necessarily be highly renovated, but livable. I think from what I'm seeing in the first home buyer market when we're inspecting property, those almost those set and forgets for first home buyers. If the position is A1 and they turn around and say, I've got a bathroom that will be fine for the next 10, 15 years, same as the kitchen, and it's very comfortable to move into, they're the things that are still attracting, multiple parties that are interested in the property as well. And I think that's where the surprise can be for some first home buyers. They see the general media, they see that it's a buyer's market, and then they're going to these properties and then having to still compete with one or two offers or Zoom auctions. And I think that's where the confusion can come as well, versus properties that are in need of a renovation. To do a kitchen and to do it well, entry level kitchens or bathrooms can be $50,000 to $70,000. Yes, you can get cheaper, but it just depends on what you're after as well. So I think that's probably as you mentioned before, your point there with certain property types are still holding strong even in the current climate. Yeah.
Types, locations, price points.
Yeah.
I think that it is very different. That's always been the way. It's been fragmented for many, many years. So if the experience of Emily, her experience is that a surprising amount of interest or competitive interest, that doesn't surprise given the first home buyer category that she'd be looking in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what we'll do, I think we've got time for one more. Mackenzie from Aberfeldy. Mackenzie asked, as first home buyers, we're told we just need to get into the market, but how much should we compromise to get into the market, and what should we absolutely not compromise on? Again, this is actually a good question, and one that seems to be the perennial experience of first home buyers, and they've got well-meaning relatives probably to say, look, you just got to get into the market, which is well and good, but what to get into what, and what sort of compromise. And interestingly, Mackenzie's probably at that point where the realisation's hit that perhaps compromise does need to be made, and oftentimes does.
I think it probably starts with, for first home buyers, I lay out a map of what's the most important part for us. Okay, is it the property type, or is it the location, and what can move? If we've got a set budget and we want a certain property type, then maybe we have to compromise on the location. Or if we want to be in a certain location because that's in a school zone for our kids in the future, or our future kids potentially, and we've still got the set price, then we'll have to compromise on the property type. So I think that's one thing to look at. And then if it gets down to, for example, without going too deep into it, but if we're compromising on property or property type, is it number of rooms, or is it an orientation that you'd want versus one that you don't have? These are the things, compromises that you can change, I think, are important.
And I think that's the key to it, is to determine what's important to you. Yeah. So it's not so much the type of property, but it's the location I need to be in for any number of reasons, for work purposes, for social purposes, for educational institutions, because of the future needs. I just like this area. I don't want to be, close to the city where it's congested. I don't want to be out where there's probably fewer services and infrastructure to make life enjoyable, whatever it might be. Just determine what's important to you and what are the non-negotiables. And then look at compromising on those factors or those elements of a property that can be changed. Yep. So if you're saying, for instance, in an inner suburban location, well, I'm a first home buyer, I've got, let's say $550,000. Well, I want a 2-bedroom. Well, that's achievable in a suburb, but there will be compromises. Probably things like the condition of it. It may not have a balcony. A 2-bedroom place may not have a balcony at that sort of price point. So if you were to say, no, I've got to have outdoor space. Okay, well then perhaps that's something that we can't change. You need to find that. But if the kitchen's 30, 40 years old, make it comfortable. A few years' time, then look to do the renovation to it. You can change that. Yeah. So if you say, well, I have to have a car space, you can't change that. So don't compromise on the things that you can't change that are important to you. But you might well say, well, look, I want outdoor space. I want something renovated. I want to be in, Hawthorne, South Yarra, wherever it might be. My budget's $550. Well, do we compromise on the number of bedrooms?
That's right.
A good one bedroom, a very good one bedroom can be found at that sort of price point.
Yeah.
So, I think
another example. Yeah, sorry, Jordan. Another example. I've had chats with some first home buyers about this too. In the housing sector, looking to buy a house, and it's we want 3 bedrooms, but 3 bedrooms doesn't get us in the A1 part of this suburb. It gets us in an area where there might be, I might be on a busy road, or I might be near industrial zone land. That there, if you could buy a 2-bedroom place again and not sacrifice or compromise on location, but you've got the land or the potential to add a room on down the track, then that's something you strongly want to weigh up, because one thing that you can't change there is the position or the land that you zoned around or the busy road. And so there's going to be a big segment of the market that won't appeal to down the track if it ever comes to selling. So it's a big thing that you want to keep in mind.
Yeah, I liken it to, in a way, sort of a mixing board. Like you see the old, like the producers in a music studio, those sorts of things. Well, the artist is up there with their earphones on, and they're behind the glass and all the rest of it, doing their thing, and the producer's sort of bringing up the treble here, dropping the bass down here till the balance is just right.
Yeah.
And so that's what it is in a lot of ways with finding a property. There's always going to be a compromise. So what can I move? Can I move my budget up to get what I want? No. Or maybe just a little bit. Am I prepared to compromise on the location? Yeah, I can go out another suburb or go into the less preferred parts of the suburb. I can bring that down. I want something in good condition. Doesn't have to be fully renovated, but I can tweak that. And then all of a sudden you find, well, I've got, roughly speaking, everything in balance.
Yeah.
I think that probably draws us to a close.
Yeah.
We've probably been talking for a little while now, and I think hopefully we've covered enough there, and of some benefit. Thank you for joining us today for episode 127 of the Rewarding Property Decisions podcast. Please feel free to share the podcast with friends, family, colleagues, and if you would like further information, please visit our website wakeland.com.au, and we wish you all the best with your property decisions.